The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Nancy Chen walked to the podium, her boots clicking against the crystalline floor. Round her, representatives from 47 different species watched with barely concealed contempt. The air reeked of ozone and something that smelled vaguely like burnt cinnamon, the scent of the Krillax delegates' nervous pheromones. Nancy had expected this. Humanity's application for council membership had been denied 3 times already, each rejection more insulting than the last. "The human delegation may speak," intoned Councillor Vexither, his triple-jointed mandibles clicking with what Nancy recognized as amusement. The insectoid being lounged in his suspension field, antennae twitching. "Though we question why you persist in wasting our time." Behind Nancy, her aide Parker Morrison tensed. She could feel his anger radiating like heat, but he remained professionally still. Good. She needed him focused, not reactive. What was about to happen required precision. "Honored councilors," Nancy began, her voice steady and clear. "Humanity requests reconsideration of our membership application." A sound rippled through the chamber, the galactic equivalent of derisive laughter. The Valkyrie representative, a being of pure crystallized thought, pulsed with colors that translated to mockery. "Your species," Vexither said, "has existed for what, 200,000 of your years? We have civilizations here that were building Dyson spheres when your ancestors were still in trees." He leaned forward. "You have nothing to offer this council. You are violent, primitive, and worst of all slow." The other delegates murmured agreement. One particularly bold Xanthian called out, "They don't even have quantum consciousness. They still use biological computers." Nancy nodded slowly, as if accepting the criticism. Parker shifted behind her, and she heard his almost inaudible intake of breath. He knew that gesture. She was about to do something. "You're correct, Counselor," Nancy said. "We are young. We are still biological. We haven't transcended our physical forms or uploaded ourselves to higher dimensions." She paused. "We're still limited by the laws of physics as we understand them." "Exactly." Vexither's mandibles spread wide in triumph. "You admit your inferiority. This matter is, but let me show you something," Nancy interrupted, her voice cutting through his pronouncement like a blade. From her pocket, she withdrew a small device no larger than a coin. Parker recognized it immediately. Project Lighthouse, the thing they'd been developing for 3 years. "In the Sol system's outer reaches." "What is that supposed to be?" asked the Valkyrie delegate, colors shifting to curious purple. "This," Nancy said, holding the device up, "is a human invention. We call it a quantum tunneling singularity generator." She set it on the podium. "It can create a controlled micro-black hole that collapses in exactly 3.7 seconds, releasing a burst of Hawking radiation precisely calibrated to any frequency we choose." Several delegates leaned forward. Vexither's antennae stopped twitching. "Impossible," he said. "The energy requirements alone would require zero-point energy extraction." Nancy finished. "Yes, we figured that out 18 months ago." She smiled thinly. "You see, Counselor, you're right that we're young. But you made one critical error in your assessment of humanity." The chamber had gone completely silent. "You assumed," Nancy continued, "that because we haven't had millions of years to develop, we develop slowly." She picked up the device again. "But humanity doesn't develop slowly. We develop desperately. We develop like our lives depend on it, because for most of our history they did." Parker watched the delegates' reactions carefully. Several were accessing their own databases, running calculations. The Valkyrie's colors had shifted to alarmed orange. "While you've spent the last million years refining the same technologies," Nancy said, her voice growing harder, "humanity went from bronze swords to antimatter reactors in 5,000 years. From the first powered flight to walking on our moon in 66 years. From first contact with your vessels to cracking quantum consciousness in 12. She raised her hand, holding the device between her thumb and forefinger. "You called us primitive, slow, worthless." Nancy's eyes locked on Vexither. "You insulted my entire species in front of the galaxy." Vexither's carapace had begun to darken, a sign of stress in his species. "So let me tell you what humanity is going to do," Nancy said quietly. "We're going to take our primitive technology and our slow development, and our violent tendencies, and we're going to leapfrog every single one of you." She held up one finger, just one, pointing directly at the ceiling of the council chamber. "In 10 years, we'll have sustainable wormhole networks. In 20, we'll have solved the heat-death problem. In 50, we'll be offering you membership in our alliance." Her single raised finger didn't waver. "And you'll accept, because by then, you'll need us more than we ever needed you." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates were shouting, demanding, threatening. But Nancy noticed something else. Several of them were already accessing communication channels, no doubt contacting their homeworlds to reevaluate their intelligence on humanity. Parker stepped forward as security drones began to activate. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "we should go." Nancy pocketed the device and turned to leave. As she did, Vexither's voice cut through the noise. "Wait." She paused, looking back over her shoulder. The ancient counselor had risen from his suspension field, something he apparently never did. His antennae were flat against his head, and what Parker's cultural database indicated was a gesture of respect. "The council," Vexither said slowly, "will reconvene to discuss humanity's application." He stared at Nancy for a long moment. "You are either the greatest bluff artist in galactic history, or we have made a grave error in judgment." Nancy smiled, not warmly, but with satisfaction. "Counselor," she said, "humanity doesn't bluff. We're too young and too desperate to waste time on deception." She glanced at the device in her pocket. "We just work the problem until we solve it, no matter how impossible everyone says it is." As Nancy and Parker walked out of the council chamber, the young aide finally allowed himself to grin. "Think they bought it?" he whispered. Nancy's expression didn't change. "Doesn't matter if they bought it or not. We've got 10 years to make it true." Parker's grin widened. That was humanity in a nutshell: make an impossible promise, then move heaven and earth to keep it. Behind them, the council was already voting. For the first time in 3 applications, it wasn't unanimous. Humanity was no longer being dismissed. They were being feared. And in the Galactic Council, Nancy knew, fear was the first step to respect.